In Hawke's Bay, the past 3 seasons have been unusually dry. Sheep and beef farmers Sam Morra and Tom Clouston have adopted new strategies for their farms. Sam Morra manages 765 hectares of rolling hill country on his family's property. He's changed his cattle policy, moving to lower weight bulls. He quits stock early and buys in replacements while carefully monitoring feed stores.
I took over from my father 9 years ago. The property was then 488 hectares, and we've since bought 2 neighbouring blocks of land. We're running 3,700 Romney breeding ewes. Up until this year, we've been breeding our own replacements. Change of policy just recently has sort of led to buying in replacements every year. Cattle-wise, we try and run up to 500 head of cattle through the winter. Obviously, in the last 3 years, that's been not possible, so the policies have been a wee bit sort of up and down, but mainly beef steers and Friesian dairy bulls. As it's dried out gradually over the summer, it's just been impossible to finish lambs, and cattle have just had to go because the cattle feeds just are not there. It's not worth getting yourself in a real situation, animal welfare-wise, financially, because you're not prepared to let them go. I think sell them, deal with it, move on, feed what you've got left well, and deal with the results later. This is a mixture of store lambs and fat lambs for the works. The fat lambs are all 38 kilos and above, and the store lambs obviously under 38. They'll be weighed on the truck and going to another farmer in the area, and he'll be paid on a weight gain basis by the meat company. We've been forced onto the store market this year and the previous 2 because of the dry. Lamb prices this year have been pretty much in excess of $80 right from the outset. We weaned lambs in November, and we didn't kill a lamb under $80, and it's basically risen gradually since then through to a season high for us of $98. That's net to the farm. This is a paddock that was in Hunter Brassica, sown in October of 2008. It was a poor crop due to the dry conditions then. We fattened a handful of lambs on it, and then because it was so poor and didn't last that long, we then put it into what you see now, which is a Moata ryegrass, and that was sown in middle of February. But the soil conditions have been that dry that, as you can see, it just hasn't established properly. We got a rain in February, and everyone got pretty excited and thought, here we go. And what it did do is it set us up well for tupping for the ewes. But what happened after that was very little rain. We had a very dry March, very dry April, and May has provided us with about 100 mils of rain to date. We've just in the last week decided to pad feed all the majority of our breeding ewes, bar the tail enders and bar the very good ones. So there's 2,500 ewes in here. They're basically taking the paddock down to no feed, and then we'll start feeding grain maize and straw baleage mix. I'm pretty confident with the advice that we've sought and what we've purchased and about to do. I think we can maintain them and hopefully lift them a little bit before lambing.
Tom Clouston has been farming on his 590-hectare family property for the past 8 years, running around 2,800 Kelso composite ewes with 900 replacements and as many bulls as possible.
We're getting ready for set stocking in about 3 weeks' time. The country they're going to be set stocked on is being left alone at the moment. It's just had urea put on it at 85 kilos to the hectare. They'll get a pre-set stocking fecal egg count test done on them, see if I need to drench some pre-lamb. They'll also get a 5-in-1 for blood poisoning. And we've decided not to pre-lamb shear this year just because of the wool length. It's something we're trying to get away from, and the extra feed they require over pre-lamb shearing. I just want to avoid it if I can. There is research to prove that if you pre-lamb shear around day 90 to 100 of conception, there is an increase in lamb birth weight if you can feed the ewes. And I don't believe I can feed the ewes well enough this year to take full benefit of that versus the cost of shearing. With not shearing them, I'm going to definitely have to do a lambing beat because they could get cast quite easily with the extra weight of the wool, especially wet wool. That was something I was going to do anyway. So it's, I don't see that being as a cost to me at this stage. Feed demand at the moment is around 14 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day. As a comparison, last year it was at 19 and we got through winter fine with that. The year before we had it down at 9 for the 2007 drought. So it's sort of in between. It's not quite as, well, it's where I think it's probably high enough for where we are at the moment. I certainly wouldn't want it high, and I'm hoping to reduce it shortly by putting bulls on crops. The bulls we've got on hand at the moment, we've got 350 of them. They are probably averaging around 400 kilos. We'll be putting 100 of them onto crop shortly and feeding out to them the round bales of baleage. At the moment, what you can see around me is cricket damage. You can see the cracks in the ground here. That's Wanstead clay soil. It's baked out in summer and created a crack that wide. And the crickets have nested in there and lived in there, and they've come out and just cleared all the grass around it. At the moment, it's actually looking quite good. We're looking green, and it's just starting to come away. We have had 65 mils of rain this month. We didn't really get anything for April, and it hadn't quite gone brown after our February rain. So relatively speaking, compared with a lot of people east of us, we've been quite lucky this summer and autumn. There's about 70 hectares on our farm like this here, which we did cricket bait, malathion laced wheat. We put that on in February. It killed the crickets, but this is the regrowth we've had since then, basically. So in hindsight, it was probably a waste of money this year because they would have laid their eggs for next season. And probably December, January, we'll have a huge outbreak of crickets unless we get a wet winter and we can treat a few of their eggs into the ground. So Richard, these are 5th of July lambing, 152% scanning.
152%. Well done. That's awesome for early mated ewes for us here. That's good. Have you marked the...
It's been 3 really, really difficult seasons. This year, 2009, is a little bit different to 2008 in that where farmers are now, they're in a better position. And that better position is basically driven by lower stock numbers. So lower stock numbers cope with lower feed, and the stock that's there, particularly the sheep, is in much, much better body condition than where we were in 2007 and 2008. The animal welfare, they're very, very aware of it, which is a groundswell change from perhaps 5 or 10 years ago, very conscious of it. And I think that it would be fair to say that there are impending issues, but those impending issues have been well highlighted, well forecast. There's 2 challenges, and they both go hand in hand with pregnancy. We've got a capital stock ewe flock here, albeit diminished, but it is scanning, and it's going to scan quite well, so you know they're well loaded with lambs. And as well as that, we've got cows and calf, not very many beef cows left in Hawke's Bay, but you know there's still quite a few thousand out there that are in lightened condition. Now what's happening physiologically is pregnancy's advancing, and we're heading towards some feed deficits, particularly in August and September, lambing and calving time. So the real challenge is to match the feed demand against advancing pregnancy and marry that in with capturing the commercial opportunity that these things have got inside them, you know, having lambs and calves to sell. The young guys really are leading the way in adaptation. You know, if there is such a thing as climate change, if they have to jump to a much greater level of flexibility, they're the ones that are driving it. And it's really awesome. It's really invigorating to see people like Tom and like Sam that are just coping with change and keep on coping, just with whatever's dealt to them from above.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.